All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our second installment of our Public Health Industry Day for federal government. Today, we're very, very excited to have a very popular employer with our school, and also to an employer that we have a very strong working relationship with over the years. So today we have the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, and we are fortunate to have Ashley Harris and also Abby Walsh to speak with you today to talk about the center and the work and kind of the work that goes on there and the opportunities. And then we'll leave time throughout for questions. So we'll save it for the end, or if you have a question, feel free to drop them into the chat, and I'll monitor the chat to see if there's questions that need to be popped up or questions we can wait for the end. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ashley to ask him to get us started.
Thank you so much, Paul. So I'll get started with some slides. I'm going to share my screen. Just a second. Is everybody able to see this okay? Okay, perfect. So again, as Paul said, I'm with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. We're going to go over the opportunities for students and recent graduates. My name is Ashley Harris. I'm a recruiter within the Division of Strategic Customer Relations in the Office of Human Capital. So, of course, we're going to start by, what is CMS? So CMS is the largest purchaser of healthcare in the world, responsible for some very critical functions such as Medicare, Medicaid, the Children's Health Insurance Program, otherwise known as CHIP, and the federal health insurance exchanges, which touches the lives of over 145 million Americans. CMS's mission is to serve the public as a trusted partner and steward dedicated to advancing health equity, expanding coverage, and improving health outcomes. So as you can see here, this is our headquarters that's located in Woodlawn, Maryland, right outside of Baltimore. However, we do have 10 other regional offices across the country, as well as an office in Puerto Rico. So who do we hire? So we hire mainly our function, we're based around like public health, health policy, health administration. However, we do have a variety of positions that we offer at our agency as well, such as media and communications, technology and mathematics, as well as like contract specialists, budget analysts. So there's a wide variety of different skill sets that we offer at our agency. But of course, we're always interested in anyone with public health and, health policy and things like that, because of course, that's what makes us, drive every day. So we're going to start off just going through the Pathways program, and that's what we call it in the federal world, which are our entry level or student opportunities that we offer at our agency. So first, we're going to be starting with the internship program, and then we'll go into the recent graduates, and then finally the Presidential Management Fellows program. So to go in more in depth about the internship program, just want to start by saying that typically we do post in January for that following summer. However, this year we were notified that we'll be posting around February for the 2023 summer interns. So the internship program is typically 12 weeks during the summer, starting in late May. That could go to early September. It really depends. And applicants must possess a 3.0 GPA and be enrolled at least half-time in a degree-seeking program in the U.S. U.S. citizenship is required for any of our positions, whether it's entry-level or not. That's just specific to our agency. However, that's not how all agencies are in the federal world, but I did want to make that a point. But yes, most interns will begin through the summer program and may possibly be eligible for employment past the summer and converted to a permanent position with promotion potential. It's not a guarantee. It just really depends on the component that hires you and if they have the feasibility to afford to keep you on permanently. So with just like the intern opportunities or pathways, you're always going to find our opportunities on usajobs.gov. I'm not sure if any of you all are familiar with that. However, you're going to have to kind of get familiar to apply to any of our announcements. because like I said, that's where every opportunity is going to be posted. I highly recommend before February hits, if you guys are interested in recent grad or intern opportunities, to kind of create your profile ahead of time, just to kind of make sure that you have everything squared away that you can, because typically we only open any of our like student opportunities for like 5 days. It's not long at all. So the time it opens, it will close almost the same week. So you want to make sure that you have your application package as, you know, as together as it can be, of course. So, you know, an updated resume, updated contact information, any transcripts, that's because we are going to need transcripts. So unofficial is obviously the only possibility, but we definitely are going to need that. Oh, I'm sorry. We're definitely going to need that. And, you know, just making sure that you're uploading your resume, and you can upload up to 5 resumes. So say, for instance, if you have experience in multiple different areas, you want to create a resume tailored to that specific skill set. You know, you don't want a one size fits all resume. You want to make sure that you're actually making it tailored to that announcement. Again, if you want to learn more about the summer intern announcements, the pathways, I can actually put the link in the chat. This is a shorter version of it, but our pathways link will give you all of the updated information about what's currently open for any of our student opportunities, as well as what's coming soon. So you can be made aware and you can save a search. So we definitely highly advise, you know, searching on USA Jobs, internship. But you're going to have to actually spell out our agency's name. So instead of CMS, you would have to actually put Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Now for the summer, for next summer, they will be mainly virtual. However, it could possibly be in person depending on the manager's discretion. But for the most part, almost 90% of our agency is remote right now, just to let everyone know. Now, however, if you're interested in a non-paid opportunity and in any capacity, you are able to submit your resume and transcript at the student volunteers at cms.hhs.gov to possibly become a volunteer at our agency. Again, this is the only non-paid opportunity. The internship is paid, as well as all the other pathways programs opportunities are paid as well. Now, speaking of intern program, I actually have Abby Walsh here today that will be giving a better view of the experience as an intern at our agency. And she will go more in depth about her own experience and then just the you know, her path to CMS. So Abby, if you don't mind.
Thanks, Ashley. Hi, everyone. I'm Abby. I'm a second-year student here at Hopkins. I'm getting my MSPH in the Health Policy Department. And I knew prior to coming to Hopkins that I wanted to work in public service. I had about 3.5 years worth of work experience prior to coming to grad school in the healthcare field, but more on the corporate and health administration side. And so when I came to Hopkins, I was like, okay, I want to move to public service, but I didn't know what that looked like essentially. And in January of this year, I actually attended a fireside chat with that the school of nursing put on, and it was with the CMS administrator, Chiquita Brooks-LaSure. And I was really, really interested and blown away about all the health equity initiatives and just the vision that CMS has right now in expanding access to healthcare and just making healthcare better for Americans. And then a week later, saw that the Pathways was hosting a webinar to get to know the program and attended that and was sold. I was like, I want to work for CMS. I want to get in this way because working for the federal government, it can be a little hard to get in sometimes because they do look for some specialized experience. And I just didn't have that. Like I said, my experience was a little bit different coming into grad school. So I saw the Pathways program as a way for me to get in. So I applied at the end of January, and in addition to what Ashley mentioned, there was also some online behavioral assessments. They were super easy. They're not meant to trick you, but everything else she said is really accurate. I submitted resumes, transcripts, etc. And then I want to say around early March, I got an email from the program saying, hey, you're a qualified candidate. We are going to send out your resume to the managers who have said that they're interested in getting interns, and they will contact you if they're interested in interviewing you. And then about mid-March, I remember I interviewed on St. Patrick's Day. So yeah, about mid-March, I started getting interview requests. In total, I got 4 interview requests. I conducted 2 interviews and I got 1 offer. And that offer was with the Division of Tribal Affairs. And it was the offer I wanted, so I was very happy. And then I started in late May. So since May, I've been with the Division of Tribal Affairs. And in my role, we're situated within the Medicaid side. So that's one thing. If you're interested in CMS, there's a lot of centers and offices that support CMS, and it can be very confusing. So I recommend looking at the organization chart that's posted on the CMS website if you're interested in getting to be familiar with all the different groups. But I'm on the, like I said, I'm on the Medicaid side, but in DTA, Division of Tribal Affairs, we touch basically everything within CMS because if you don't know, the federal government has a unique relationship with tribal governments. It's a government to government relationship. And so we have what's called a TTAG, or the Tribal Technical Advisory Group. And so my division is really, we're meant to liaise between the TTAG and all of CMS and IHS. So in addition to creating policy, we also do a lot of outreach and education and technical assistance. So I've gotten to see a wide variety of the work that CMS does, since we're just so plugged in to all the different components. I even got to attend a conference this past, or actually it was in September, at the end of September, that was hosted by the National Indian Health Board. It was a health equity and health policy conference. And so again, just got to see like what's going on within the tribal world and how CMS can continue contributing and building that unique relationship with the tribes. And then I think one thing that I want to emphasize is that when I started, I felt a little head underwater. I was like, whoa, this is a lot going on. And it's been almost 6 months and I feel so much more confident. So if you do go this route and go into CMS, there's a lot to learn, but management and your team, like across the board, from what I can tell, is just very supportive of getting you on your feet and getting you adjusted and feeling confident in your role. And then one thing I wanted to highlight before I give it back to Ashley, we can also have time for questions at the end, is like she said, it's not guaranteed that you can convert to a permanent internship. And I had a very interesting situation, but it was still very positive. So in July, when I had spoke with my manager and let her know that, hey, I'd love to stay with DTA. I love this job. She was like, great. We want to keep you too, but we just have to ensure that we have that FTE position. Sadly, they didn't. But her, as well as our higher up leadership, were really committed to making sure that I could stay on in some capacity or at least move over to another team. So they were able to extend my role with DTA through the end of this calendar year, so December 31st. And I've already gotten placed on a new team it's actually a team that's also on the Medicaid side, very close to my team. And I want to just like emphasize that as long as you're openly communicating with your management and, showing up to work in a very positive, good manner, I think that contributed to my leadership working so hard to help me find a new role that is going to also be a role that I'm really excited for and really like. Because while I couldn't stay at DTA, which is very bittersweet, I'm very excited for this new role. So very grateful for the opportunity to stay with CMS, because I think I'm going to be a long hauler. I don't see myself leaving anytime soon. And just very grateful that they were so supportive and did whatever they could to keep me and get me in a position that I'm very happy to be in. So Ashley, if you want to keep going on your stuff, because I know you have a few more things to talk about. And then for the students, if you all have any questions at the end, I'm happy to jump back in and answer more questions.
Thank you so much, Abby. That was great. Just given that background of your experience and also getting, into the conversion of, becoming like a permanent intern, which is actually fairly new for us at our agency. I want to say the summer of 2019 was the highest amount of interns converted to permanent interns. So this is kind of something that we started doing that has really panned out wonderfully for a lot of our interns that, may want to stay throughout their school year and just, learn as much as they can before they may come, to us full time as a graduate. So that's really good information. And just to clarify, when Abby was speaking about an FTE, basically an FTE is the funding that we have for each individual that's now permanent or a full-time employee. So if the funding is not there, technically we have to kind of move you around to make sure that we have the funding. So that's just to clarify what an FTE means. So yeah, that was great. So moving along, we're going to get into the recent graduates program, which is another cohort within the Pathways program that CMS offers. So the recent grad program is a 1-year entry-level program that's more so a developmental program where applicants must have graduated from a qualifying educational institutional program within the last 2 years, undergrad or advanced degree with a 3.0 GPA, and as well as U.S. citizenship is required. But it can be 6 years if you're a veteran. So I know not everyone that's in school may have been going straight through school. Some people start their careers and go back. So that kind of differentiates that. But typically it's going to be 2 years eligibility. I will say it's a great program. I actually came from the recent grad program as a management program analyst in 2019. June 2019 is when I started. And it was wonderful. I mean, a lot of mentoring, a lot of training, whether in person or online. It really helps you. The Pathways program really allows you to get acclimated to the federal world, because as Abby said, it is a lot to learn. It is a lot to be adjusted to, but it's not impossible. So the more you know, the more you discuss or sit in on meetings and really hear the language and understand, what everyone's talking about. It really helps you get more familiar. There are a lot of acronyms. Our entire agency is just full of acronyms. So you're going to hear that very often. Like the Office of Human Capital, we just call it OHC. We don't really say the entire name. Abby's in CMCS, which, it's a much longer name. But I will attach, once we finish these slides, I will attach the link to our components list that you all could favorite, because it actually goes in depth about the functional statement for every component and center and office in our agency, as well as who the leadership is, and just gives you a better idea of what area would you see yourself fitting best in. And I feel like that's very helpful information that I wish I would have maybe known ahead of time, but it definitely helps you at least get a little more familiar with CMS. So you can be appointed as a GS7 or a GS9, typically with possible potential promotion to a GS12. So typically a GS7 is going to be someone with a bachelor's degree, and then a GS9 will be someone with a master's degree. That's typically how you would look at that on usajobs.gov. And again, any of the entry level or student opportunities, the duties and responsibility, or the duties and the qualifications, is going to be very broad, because they know that this is an entry level position and they're not really basing it so much on your experience as well as more so your education. So don't feel too overwhelmed with that section if you are applying to an entry level position, but please make sure that, you are applying to something that you're applicable to. You want to make sure that you're doing that. And again, these positions are going to be posted in the fall and spring semesters. So if you do see something that was posted in the fall when you're like, oh my God, I don't graduate until the spring, don't worry. We typically post most of the same positions each semester. But unfortunately, if you were looking in the fall, but you don't graduate until the May, you're not able to apply until you're about to graduate. So you have to apply within the semester you're graduating, just to clarify that for everyone. But again, like I said, don't think that you're missing an opportunity because it's posted now. They will be posted each semester. And again, that will be found on usajobs.gov. So again, students that are graduating this fall, 2022 in December, you're of course able to apply to any opportunities that are forthcoming. So we should be having a social science research analyst position opening around November 15th. That date may not be a hard date there. However, around that time frame is when you will see that. And again, I will put the Pathways link in the chat box so that you all can favorite it to your computers, so that when it's around that time frame, it will definitely be posted on there as well. And again,
Ashley, yeah. Can I ask a quick question? Would these be posted in Handshake? Because I know that oftentimes they're posted.
Yes.
And you get notified. Okay.
We post in various. Yep. So we'll post on LinkedIn. We'll post it on Handshake, and of course, it's going to be on USA Jobs to apply. Yes.
Yeah. Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So Handshake, we definitely do a lot of promotion through Handshake. You'll probably see myself or Sean contacting someone from, depending on, what the skill set may be. We always are, advocating on Handshake. But for the 2023 spring opportunities, they will typically be posted in February. So that's something to kind of keep in mind to look for. From February to maybe May is when we post for spring. So next, we're going to go into our next tier of Pathways program, which is the Presidential Management Fellows program, which is a very unique opportunity. So the Presidential Management Fellows Program is different from the recent grad in a few ways. So this is actually a 2-year leadership program versus a developmental program, as I said before, in the recent grad, whereas you're actually hired through OPM. You're not actually hired through a specific agency. Once you're hired through OPM, then we can accept, various agencies can then accept the PMF, if that makes sense. And again, you're going to be appointed at either a GS9 or a GS11 level, because this is only for graduate students. So only for those that seeking advanced degrees can actually apply to the PMF program. But again, it is a leadership opportunity that puts you in more of a leadership focus with a possible full promotion potential to a GS12. Now, this is typically announced around September of every year. And again, it's going to be the www.pmf.gov. That website is going to explain everything about the process as far as how to apply, what needs to be submitted. Typically, this is pretty much open for either 3 weeks or a little less than a month. It's typically open for way longer than our opportunities are open, because it is a pretty lengthy application process. So I'd just like to let everyone know that in advance, if you are interested, to make sure that you are, completing your application package as stated on the pmf.gov website. There is a 2-year eligibility for this as well. So it's the year you plan to graduate and the year you graduated. So that's your eligibility period for applying to a PMF position. And typically they make their decisions on who becomes a finalist around October for that next coming year. So September is when it's posted, October is when they make their finalist announcements. So again, this, so CMS recruitment at cms.hhs.gov, I can put that in the chat as well. That is where, if you should have any questions in the application process, hiring process, just anything in general about applying to CMS, please feel free to email this email address, and probably myself or my colleague Sean will be responding to you with an answer. I'm going to put it in here as well. But that's just kind of a brief overview of the opportunities that we offer at an entry level at CMS, but definitely free to take any questions that you all have, which I'm sure you do.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to either raise their hand, feel free to unmute. Go ahead, Anna, you can start.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. That was really helpful. I've looked at those job postings before and was very confused. So this is great and really helps me understand kind of the different levels and just generally how it works. I had a couple of questions. My first one is, what kind of advice might you have for resumes or cover letters, anything like that, that might be a little bit different from our previous resumes from corporate jobs? I'm kind of in a similar position to Abby, where I had some industry experience and I'm really looking to transition to the public sector. And then also, do we have any ability to rank the offices when we apply, or the departments within CMS for where we might want to be matched or have an interview, or is that mostly on your guys' part, where the different managers will kind of select?
Okay, yeah, so that was a two-part question, but great question. That is probably the most frequently asked question that we get as far as the federal resume goes. Now, yes, it is a difference to answer that question between a federal resume and a private sector resume. And being that most times private sector, you're probably told, oh, keep your resume to 1 to 2 pages, or it's typically it's going to be longer than that. 9 times out of 10 federal resumes, we don't really look at it as a limit that you should have. It's more or less, what is the content within that, that really ends up being the most important. So we highly advise to kind of structure, well, there's a couple of things that you must include in your resume for it to be considered federal. One, you must have the hours per week after every experience that you work. I know it sounds very specific and things like that. The only reason we do that is because our HR specialists that are reviewing your resume, not everyone is not in the federal sector. So some people are actually already in the federal world. So we have to determine what we call time and grade to make sure that they're eligible for that grade level. So we make everyone do it just because it's more streamlined. So you must have the hours you work per week for every work experience you have listed, as well as you must have how much you made either per hour or what your salary was per year. That must be in there. So those are the two must-haves. Outside of that, it's kind of just advice that we would give, but it's not concrete. It doesn't make like, oh, this format is over this format is going to make you better. But we do advise to kind of have like a small narrative format versus the bullet points. So say for instance, right, like you had program management experience. We suggest you put in like all caps program management and then kind of state the duties that you had in like more of a narrative format, like a block format. Nothing too lengthy, but definitely being very concise and specific. We also suggest that you quantify your experience. So say for instance, if you were, you helped with a budget and you were handling $6 million in 3 months, like be as specific as you can, because it really helps our management really determine where you would be in our agency. Because again, like we said, we have over 20 different components in our agency. However, within that, we all kind of revolve around the same mission, but we do have slightly different nuances. So that will really help us determine whether you should be in CM versus CMCS, or, this office of OFM, or, it really kind of helps us dictate that. So definitely recommend the, highlighting or all caps, like the primary experience in that role, as well as like a block narrative, block information, being concise. Please read over, make sure you don't have any typos. This is read by a specific person, so it's very manual. We do not have any software that picks out keywords, or no, we don't have any of that. So that's why it takes almost 4 to 8 weeks before you're even told if you're referred, because typically for any of our pathways, we're probably receiving like 6 to 1,000 applications on one posting. And that's one person reviewing all of those applications. So it takes time. And now that we've become remote, we've almost doubled that. So we just recommend, please be patient with us. It's not as quick as the private sector. So I like to be very transparent in that. So don't think that like, if you don't hear back in 2 weeks, that something's wrong, not necessarily. And again, Abby made a great point that when she was referred, HR did let her know that now the manager's responsibility to contact you. So it's out of the HR specialist hands. Once you're referred, it's now up to the manager to reach out. Now, I know you did ask another question about the components. Okay, that's what you said. If you could actually select. So I will say with the entry level opportunities, it's different. So say if we post a management program analyst for the recent grads, it's basically up for grabs for our entire agency. So there is no say the component that you review on this list is actually in need of a recent grad at that time. You understand? So we can't really determine to pick in that sense, because you really don't know who may have the feasibility or who may be able to accept the recent grad. But it's good for you to know in advance, because say for instance, Abby received 4 different invitations for an interview and she got to choose. So if you have that upper hand of knowing the components that we offer, then it kind of gives you more insight of, I may be a better fit for this area versus this area. So that's kind of where you could choose there. But at the initial application, there's not an option to really choose. They're going to ask you location more than anything. I think you get to choose 3 locations of interest that are near you. But other than that, it would not happen at that time. And say, for instance, if you were to apply to a GS9 position that was outside of recent grad program, it will say the specific component that's hiring. So then at that point, you could decide, okay, I don't want to be in the Office of Financial Management, or maybe I want to be in this office instead. So then that dictates what you would apply to. But when it's just recent grads or interns, typically, sometimes we do have specific intern opportunities or specific recent grad opportunities, but for the ballpark, when we hire like the majority, it's not just one component listed. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
And I'll make a plug, and I promise Paul didn't tell me to say this, but Caroline Heaney, who is the HPM's go-to career service person. Her and I became like best friends last year when I was doing the practicum search because of the resume. So don't be afraid to go to your career service advisor. They will help you. There's a ton of online resources about how to make a federal resume too. But career services, they're very familiar. Like Paul said at the beginning, a lot of people from Hopkins go to CMS, excuse me. So they can help you kind of make it look appropriate and hit all the points. And then the job descriptions or the applications, excuse me, they tell you like must have your hours, must have this. So you don't have to remember that either. It'll all be on there.
Ashley, I had a question about the hours and the salary information on there. Does that get factored into the like decision making, or is it just it's just a piece of information that needs to be there, just like you're putting your degree information?
Yeah, it's not really factored in for those that aren't already in the federal world or even just entry level in general. It's just a structure that has to be made, right, regardless if it's entry level or whether or not you've been in the federal world or not. But I wouldn't say that's made in determination for entry level opportunities. Now, when you're looking at more journeyman level, GS11, GS12, that's definitely a huge factor. Because especially when you're discussing salary and things like that, sometimes those that are in the private industry, especially contractors or like you're a contract specialist or like a nurse and things like that, they may have made more money somewhere else doing a different gig. So sometimes we have to do what we call a salary above the minimum for certain people in certain areas where what we're offering may be less than what they're already used. So that's how we can kind of make that decision, but not necessarily all the time. I did upload in the chat box our YouTube playlist, which is actually where we have posted our webinar series that go over like the frequently asked questions we get. So how to make a federal resume inside the manager's mind, all about the recent grad program, like very, very invaluable information. If you have the time to favorite that, I highly recommend it. This is like 2 years worth of videos going over all the free, and we have spotlights. So different areas like health insurance specialist is a very, very popular position we post that most people are very unaware of what that even means. What does that look like? And some people are amazed at the opportunities that that role offers. Like we just had a health outreach specialist spotlight, whereas you're more so an advocate to the public, educating those about the healthcare benefits that so you wouldn't know unless you're really in our agency. So we're trying to like educate everyone and make people aware of all the different areas that we touch. And like our regional offices are very much dedicated to the community they serve. So that's the purpose of our regions. A lot of the components that we have, some of them are only in regions for a reason because of the work that they do helps to basically inform that community of different options and things like that. So I would definitely recommend favoriting that. Any other questions?
Yeah, it looks like is it Davey has his hand raised?
Okay, sure.
Hey, Ashley, thanks so much for a great presentation this morning. So like Abby, I'm a second year in the MSPH program at Hopkins, but I'm focused in health systems rather than health policy. I do have a strong interest in health policy and public insurance programs, and I've taken some policy classes. So I guess my question is, would CMS consider applicants who are coming with a degree that's not specifically or explicitly focused in health policy, but who have an interest in that area?
Absolutely. So I'm assuming health systems, are you looking on like the more like IT side of things, or are you like what kind of area realm are you looking for this opportunity?
Well, it's a pretty broad degree that would look at health system strengthening and development. So that would include things like public insurance programs, but we don't do as granular a focus into things like policy as maybe the degree in the Department of Health Policy and Management might.
Yes.
We've taken classes like on the US healthcare system, in public insurance, things like that.
Yeah, so that's major. We have various, and that's the funny thing that you mentioned, that like a lot of people don't understand the full capacity to what we offer. And like I said, health policy, that's just like an example of like, we have a lot of public health policy individuals, but like even myself, I only have a business background. I do not have any health experience at all. So that's why I'm just like, there's a wide variety. I would just be very specific in like, even just your interests in your resume. So say for instance, like you have the health system background, which is still very much pertinent, because I would even apply, like we have analyst roles that are always going to be like a staple that we post. So outside of the health insurance specialist, which could be very broad, we do post for like management program analysts, social science research analysts. And like I said, those duties could be a wide array of where you may land in our agency. So what I always recommend, don't put your eggs in one basket. I mean, if it is just one particular basket you'd rather be in, that's fine, but it is very competitive. And I like to be very transparent about that. So if you're not looked at in a different light, if you're applying to 3 different recent grad opportunities, or, that's not a problem, because obviously some people, have a wide variety of experience, or experience that can touch 3 different fields or positions in our agency. So that's never looked at in a bad way, but you just want to make sure that you're tailoring your resume to fit the announcement that you're applying to. So I always recommend to do that. But yes, definitely there's space for you here. Most definitely. I think it was a question in the chat.
Yep.
So do you recommend using the federal resume builder on USA Jobs, or uploading your resume in PDF format? That's another great question. It is completely your choice. You're not going to be looked at differently if you do not use the resume builder. I know I did not use the resume builder when I submitted my resume. But again, it's really more so how you're formatting your resume. Make sure you have relevant experience. You don't need to have that you worked at Forever 21 in 2020. That may not be relevant. Just make sure you're keeping relevant experience, being concise, being very specific in the duties that you performed. Any internship opportunities that may have had any relevancy, or any organizations or groups you may be a part of that you've had some roles that have some relevancy to the position you're applying to. So definitely it's your choice. The resume builder is just there for you to kind of help, kind of guide you in that sense, but it's not meant to be it has to be this way and there's no other way you can upload it. But we do say, please avoid, putting too much personal information on your resume. A city and state is fine. You don't need your entire address on there, because we do recommend for you to make your resume searchable via USA Jobs. When you make it searchable, basically, if a hiring manager is looking for a position that may not have posted yet, and say, for instance, I'm reading Abby's resume and I'm like, oh, she would be great for this, I could reach out to her before it's actually a position posted. So you want to create as much visibility for your application package. So make sure that you're creating a well-rounded resume that you don't mind making searchable, so that if there are recruiters looking for a position, that you could possibly be a candidate.
I don't see anything here in the chat, so feel free if you want to raise your hand or to ask. So Lisa's asking the question: how would someone with a disability apply for either of these programs?
Yeah, definitely. So, and that's actually a really great question, Lisa. That's another thing that I kind of get into with just explaining how to navigate USA Jobs. Please filter your searches. So if you do have what we call hiring paths, actually, I'm going to share my screen. I'm just very hands-on, so I don't mind sharing my screen to kind of show everyone what I mean by this. Just give me just a second. Okay. So can everyone see my screen? So perfect. So these are the 15 jobs that we currently have open at this moment. Again, like I said, we open and close positions daily. So what you see open today may change tomorrow and the next day. So what I highly recommend, once you create your profile and you search centers, because like this will not automatically pop up for you. I actually favorited Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. That's why this is there. But you would log in, you would type in Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and then you'll see this population of postings. What I recommend to do from the very beginning is to filter your search from the very beginning. So you're not looking at positions that you're not applicable for, because a lot of people get very intrigued in the titles and the salary, and they overlook a lot of the applicability of the position. So of course you would click open to the public, and you would see like a yellow box here that has like a grad cap inside of it. It's going to say students and recent grads. It's only going to be highlighted when there's an opportunity available, but there isn't one right now. So that's why it's not there. But if you did have a disability hiring path or a hiring authority, you would definitely select here as well. But I would recommend to select any hiring path that is applicable. If you're a veteran, if you're a Peace Corps, you want to use as many avenues as possible if that applies to you. However, if it doesn't, this may not be too relevant, but you want to make sure you definitely do open to the public, because the reason I say that, say for instance, this 14 position, say if you were eligible for it, you're like, hey, this isn't CPI, I want to work for CPI, but you didn't notice this is only open to federal employees at our agency and current federal employees. So if you don't look at who it's open to, you may be starting an application package for something that's not applicable to you. So just please look at all the symbols. The symbols are reflecting exactly what's on the right-hand side here. So yes, if you do have a disability, you just want to make sure that when you're submitting your application package, like say for instance, this one is open to individuals with disabilities. I'm going to click on it just to kind of give you an insight. Anytime you see this Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services hyperlink, if you click on it, it's always going to be an email box attached to that. That's where you would send your documentation to. So your Schedule A letter that you possess, please make sure that you submit that, and also make sure that you're including when you when you're including the documentation, please make sure that you have this announcement number in the subject line. That is extremely, extremely important, because it lets the HR specialist know exactly what position you're referring to, because we're going to have probably 3-5 different health insurance specialists, so we may not know what you're referring to in that sense. So please make sure you're including the announcement number stating that you're attaching your documentation, and that's what you would like to use for your special hiring authority.
Thank you.
So Ashley, there was a question from Tony about how early is too early to apply to specific positions if we expect to graduate in May.
So too early would be right now. So like if you do see the social science research analyst that's posting in probably another 2 weeks, this will be a little too early, just because those, and it will say, let me probably share it again. I wish I had an actual student announcement to show, but typically so this qualification section, this is very specific because this is not entry level. However, if it was a student announcement, in the eligibility part, like in the beginning, it will tell you that you must be graduating December 2022 in order to apply to this position. So that's just the only difference there. But of course, if you're applying if you graduate in the spring, you don't want to look until the spring. So again, we typically post around February-ish for May graduates. So you just want to make sure you're applying in the semester that you graduate. And another question that I get a lot is, can I apply to an internship and I graduate in May? Unless you're going back and you're enrolled in another program in the fall, that's the only way you can apply to an internship. Otherwise, you would be applying to recent grad. You have to still be enrolled at least part-time in a program in the fall, in the next semester, to apply to an internship.
Great, that's helpful clarification. I appreciate that. I did want to take a minute to maybe ask Abby a question about her interview experience. So Abby, can you kind of share with everyone, kind of the types of interviews, or how did you prepare, and different things like that?
Yeah, so like I said, I was contacted by 4 different teams to interview, and I only interviewed at 2 because by the time the latter 2 came in, I had actually already accepted my position with DTA. So I interviewed with 2 teams, and they both came through via email. We set it up directly with the management, and one team actually was a little bit larger, more of a panel style interview. It was 4 people, and then my DTA team, it was just my director and my chief medical officer, so it was a bit smaller. But both of them were very similar in the sense that they really just wanted to get to know me. I think, most of the managers realized like this is an entry level program. They had my resume. They saw I didn't have like tons of high level policy experience, and they weren't hiring me to be some sort of policy expert at that point. They knew they were hiring an intern. So it was very much a casual, what did how have you liked your time at Hopkins so far? Tell me about the things you've done. So if you do go down this path, I would prepare for it like any other interview, but don't work yourself up like, oh, I don't have all this high level policy experience or whatever experience you might be needing for the particular type of role you're applying for. But more like talk about the experiences you've had so far that can contribute your ability to learn and take on the tasks they're going to give you. So I actually worked at the Center for Indigenous Health last year as a research assistant. So in my DTA interview, I was able to just tell them about the research programs I worked on, everything I learned about tribal health, which of course, like my job is related to tribal health, but at the end of the day, I'm doing policy related work, which I wasn't doing at CIH, but they were still really interested in that. So I don't want to say it was casual because of course, still wear a blazer, you still want to present your best self. But I think once I did my first interview, I felt a lot better because I was like, oh, they just want to get to know me as Abby, make sure that I'm a good fit for their team, that I can show that I have a good positive attitude, that I can solve problems, like general things. So I would say, yeah, don't work yourself up too much over it. Now, the recent grad program, I can't speak to that, but maybe once you're applying, the recruiters are amazing. Marla Lazarus was the recruiter last year, so I don't know if she'll be the recruiter for the Pathways program again this year, but I had emailed her and she set up a 30-minute call with me because I was kind of freaking out in between like applying and hearing back. I was like, I need to prepare, like I need to be ready. And she calmed me down and she was like, you're going to be fine. Like, here's kind of an overview. So if you do have more specific questions about preparing, reach out to the recruiter who's overseeing that program. I'm sure they're more than happy to at least give you like a higher level, they can't anticipate what the manager would ask you, but they can kind of help get you in the right mindset, direct you on how the best way to prepare. Marla was so invaluable to me last year. I really appreciate her. She brought me down to earth when I was feeling a little stressed.
That was great.
Yeah. And I guess I would just kind of add to that, Abby, and I think Ashley, you probably say the same thing, is be patient too. If you are reaching out to the recruitment team at CMS, they will certainly do the best they can to kind of answer questions for you or give you guidance and help that you might need to help you kind of perform your best during the interviews, because they really want to make sure that you're feeling confident kind of going in. So, and our office is also here to help support it. So we can meet individually to do mock interview prep, go through interview questions. So feel free to reach out to us as well.
And just some advice also, just kind of going off of what Abby said, just preparing for like a virtual interview, if it should probably 9 times out of 10 be virtual, just make sure you have a clear background, you don't have anything that would be distracting in your background. Obviously you can't avoid like a barking dog or anything. That's normal. You know what I mean? But just try to make sure in a quiet setting, you have good connection, good lighting, making eye contact. I know it's kind of weird because we're virtual, but you still want to kind of have the same body language that you would in an interview, like still take it serious because it is very much serious. And also like I can speak to the recent grad interview process because I went through it. So I would say I was freaking out. I was just going through like a list of different things that they could possibly ask. And I'm an overthinker anyway. So I was just like, oh my God, what could I be possibly asked? But it was actually just my director and my assistant director. So it was just 2 individuals. And I did do this in person at the time. And they were just kind of asking me like situational questions. So almost like the STAR method. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that. It was kind of similar to that, like how would you resolve, when was the time that you had, a request in like a short time frame and you were able to meet that customer's needs and stuff. And like, I came from a very heavy customer service background. I worked as a banker for M&T for a year, as well as I was in the retail industry for a long time. So I've pretty much seen and done everything customer service wise. So it was a lot of like, or conflict resolution, if you had a coworker that, wasn't doing, their task for a group project, just trying to figure out ways to mediate and resolve, yes, definitely a star. I would look at that and just think of your experience. And I think you could take plenty of examples. I mean, most of the stuff we do have customers. So even if it's internal or some, like my customers for the most part are internal. And then I assist, you know, just coming to fairs and being a resource and educating everyone. But most part, myself and my colleague Sean, we help our agency promote their vacancies on LinkedIn, Handshake. So all of my customers are internal, but I still look at the same. Everyone, I have a role to assist someone, you know, having effective communication, responding back within a certain amount of time, being timely, making sure that their needs are met, not just making assumptions and, you know, recommendations off of stuff that they don't need. You know, that's very important. And just listening, being a good listener. Even attending the meetings, because like I said, there's a lot of good training and networking that you will do in the recent grad program. Once you do come on and you're hiding in a specific area, they're going to put probably a few meetings on your calendar that you're like, I have no idea what role I'm supposed to be, you know, in this, but just listen. I feel like if you become a sponge and you really pay attention to what's going on, you're going to learn a lot faster and ask questions. Like I had a bi-weekly meeting with my manager when I was in the recent grad program. So she would always ask me like, are there any pain points, anything you want to discuss, anything that you want to achieve? Like you create an IDP, which is an individual development plan, completely based off your own goals. So, which is really nice. So it's not like you're doing this for the program itself. You're really doing it for yourself. You know, where do you want to be? What do you want to learn in this role? Or you know, what is of interest to you? And, you know, I had a few different courses like flawless consulting and a few different things of just kind of helping you be a better, you know, representative for the agency and helping your customers, whether they're internal or external stakeholders, you know, things like that. So really kind of helping you better digest what your role is. You'll be surprised how helpful those trainings are. But yeah, definitely be calm, be prepared, and just be yourself. You know, that's going to shine through anyway. I know it did with my managers. So yeah, definitely just be yourself. And that's pretty much it.
Ashley, you said something that made me think of a reason I was really interested in CMS that I'd love to share. So she was just saying in her recent grad program, they had all these like leadership development and like personal development. The Pathways interns do have those opportunities too, although they're not required, but we're always invited. They give us all the information. So we're very supported in being able to take those opportunities. But one draw to me about CMS was that I could see internally there's a lot of opportunities for employees to apply to like leadership development programs. Now, you usually have to be a certain like GS level, so you may not be able to apply to those programs till you're in 11 or in a 12, but they're internal training programs that allow you to continuously develop yourself. My dad has actually worked for 3 different federal agencies throughout his career, none within like the health and human services sector. And while he's had great experiences, I tell him about stuff I do at CMS and he's like, yeah, I've never done that. Or I haven't had those opportunities. So I feel like CMS just has a lot of opportunities for employees to develop beyond the roles they're in. And I've also seen a lot of support for people to detail, and just simply what a detail is. Again, you have to apply, you have to get permission from your management, but maybe my team, let's just say DTA says, hey, we need extra support on a project that we're doing. And so someone on the Medicare side who might have a lot of interest in tribal health, they could apply to detail with the team for, I think it's usually up to 120 days. It would be very clear. And if their management allows it and the DTA management thinks they're a good fit, you can actually move over and support that team on those projects. So I think it's very, very cool that you can, I was joking around yesterday, I'm like, I could probably work at CMS for 40 years and have like different careers while staying within CMS, because there's just so much to do, so much to learn. And I just, like I said, I feel very supported in that path. And like, I think that's really important. And I know that's long-term thinking, but again, that really drew me to CMS as well. So like I said, Ashley, you kind of reminded me, so I wanted to share that.
Oh, no, that's great. Because like even you mentioned in the detail opportunity or just growth in general, I feel like it's phenomenal here. This was definitely my first federal opportunity that I've ever had. And again, it is a different world, but it's not like, you know, it's not unattainable. You know, it's still a position that we, you know, wake up and very great work-life balance. Let me add that. Probably the best work-life balance I've ever had. You get to choose, like, as soon as you start, I'm speaking from the recent grad program, the internship is a little different. But from the recent grad program, the first 2 weeks, you're like at 8 hours, 5 days a week. After that, you get to choose what your schedule is. Like I work 9.5 hours now, so I'm off every other Friday. So you're off every other week, you're off a day. It doesn't have to be Friday. It could be any day that you want to be, as long as your manager approves of that. And you can work 10 hours. So that means you're off 1 day every week. So it's a lot of work-life balance. You start earning your leave as soon as you start here at the agency. Your sick leave and annual leave is separate. I don't know if anyone understands how much of a headache that is at other places where it's all together, but it's a really, really nice feature. And like I said, the agency is very understandable for like even, say, for instance, you have a family emergency and you may need to take an extended leave. Everyone's very, very, very respectful of us just being human beings, if that makes sense, to the sense of like, I have a colleague right now, she's been on extended leave since September. And, you know, we've been just trying to support her. And, you know, there's no pressure from anyone to, you know, to get back to work as long as she's, you know, making sure everything's okay with her family. But as Abby mentioned, because I know we're kind of running out of time, the detail opportunity, it does exist. So that's a really nice thing. If you feel like you're not a stagnant person, you do not want to ever be in the same role for longer than a certain time, you're not tied down. So don't feel like you start at CMS in this one area and you find another component that's more interesting. Talk to your manager, be very upfront about that. And obviously they have to approve it, but if you do get that approval, you can move around. A colleague of mine, she's been in 8 different components in our agency and she landed back in HR. So it does give you that opportunity, as well as you can actually do details at other agencies. My mom actually works for CPI in our agency, but she's now about to do a detail with HRSA. So it's very interesting where those opportunities lie. Don't feel like you're stuck. There's a lot of fluidity, a lot of mobility in the government. Once you're in the government, everything stays. So it's not like you're losing any leave or any benefits, because of course that matters the most when you work hard. And like I said, great work-life balance, great promotional opportunity, be a sponge, you know, be willing to learn, because it's very, very fast-paced and very forever changing. You know, as the government changes with the different presidents and the work changes, you will see that take effect in our agency, especially when COVID hit. That was a major, you know, that was a critical need at that moment. You know, the Affordable Care Act, I'm sure you heard of that at that time. That was it. So it's forever changing. If you never want to feel like you're doing the same thing every day, please join CMS.
No, it's great. I appreciate all that. And I do want to kind of, you know, kind of put a little bit of a plug into as well, is, you know, thinking about too with the idea of working for CMS, it is, like Ashley was saying, getting your foot in the door type of everything. And then there's no better way to get government experience than being in government. So even if it's a short-term thing, even if it's an internship or anything like that, you're going to get an experience that's going to be able to help out no matter what. So don't think of this as like, this is the, you know, the end all be all where I'm going to be. The federal government can very much be a starting point to other things. So you can branch out outside of that. Maybe you're going to work for a nonprofit, you know, that does work in, you know, combination with CMS. So MITRE, which was an organization we had at our consulting industry day last week, is a great example of that. They work in partnership with CMS or CMMI or other agencies and things like that. So, you know, always kind of know that getting some experience in federal government can be useful both to stay within government and also to move outside of it. So we're right at the end of time. I want to, you know, just put my thanks into both Ashley and to Abby for talking today. You know, certainly Ashley giving kind of like the look behind the curtain in terms of what recruiters are looking for and things like that, I think was great. And then Abby, certainly you talking about the work that you're doing and your experience and kind of giving it that, you know, extra perspective to our audience today, I think has been really, really helpful. So thank you both. I really do appreciate your time. I do want to just kind of end, and I'll bring up here just to show on the screen. So we do have 3 more sessions for today. So our next one is with the Commission Corps. So we have 3 officers from the Commission Corps. 2 of them are Bloomberg alumni. that will be talking about their Commission Corps experience and then the work that they're doing. And then later on, we'll be having an info session with ORISE, which is the Oak Ridge Institute for Science and Education, to talk about fellowship opportunities. Also to having somebody that's currently a former fellow is working at CDC is going to be talking. And then we're wrapping up with Judith and Christiana, who are at the CDC Foundation, and they'll talk about their work there as well. So thank you all for coming, and look forward to seeing you at our next session later this afternoon.
Thanks, Paul. Have a good one.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.